early exchange, shaping policy, advancing development.
Let's look at the issues and focus this morning, which is about the fine that has been placed on Meta, the parent company of Facebook, Instagram, and WhatsApp, by the Federal Competition and Consumer Protection Commission, FCPC. Meta has been accused of data privacy violation, and they've also been accused of discriminatory practices against Nigerians and also abuse of dominating the market. I'm talking about the tech market, or you could say the social space that they control, or they're a giant, significant player there. Talking about this with us this morning is Seyi Akindeinde, who is a data analyst and is also the CEO founder of Hyperspace. And he joins us this morning physically because she thinks this is a serious issue. If a $220 million fine has been slammed on a company, then of course it is worth him coming here physically. Isn't that right?
Yes, thank you.
Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning.
Good morning. Glad you joined us.
I'll say when you see three people, just say good morning.
Okay, yes. Maybe we'll adopt that for the show. Good mornings.
Just hope that you don't feel like a jam between the bread.
Well, I will manage.
It's looking like on this side, men's hangout.
Men's hangout. So that's why I feel very happy. You know, they say when you have one man amongst women, oh, the man is blessed among women. I'm blessed among men.
Yeah,
you can reiterate that.
All right, so Seyi, $220 million fine on Meta. Data privacy. Now, this issues highlighted the global attention, global focus on data privacy issues. Is it a thing of it being a challenge with tech companies to handle the privacy of their consumers, or it's a willful violation? What's your thoughts on it?
I think it's a combination of the two. When you give someone a lot of power, sometimes they sometimes tend to misuse it. And if you look at all these big, humongous corporations with data, there's always that tendency that somewhere along the line that they will appropriate the data, which is what we have in this case. And it's obviously not the first time Meta is facing this kind of issues. Probably the first time here in this part of the world, Africa, but in Europe and other places, they've been fined several times. In fact, I actually think that the 220 million is a slap on the wrist. I mean, this is almost like pittance to Meta. But I like the fact that we are taking our data privacy seriously in this part of the world, and we are sort of, what the FCCPC is doing is sort of asserting, giving regulatory assertiveness to let them know that it's not going to be business as usual. If you have access to data of people, you have to safeguard it, and if you want to use it, we're not saying you shouldn't use it, but at the minimally just take consent from them. Let them know that this is what you want to use this data for. Let them give them rights over the data, and then just safeguard it and keep it, and then that's I think it's a step in the right direction. Obviously they still have the right to appeal, which is still obviously they're going to take up, but at least it's sending a clear signal that we have a Nigerian data protection regulation who is doing the job, and the FCCPC who are also taking data privacy seriously in this part of the world. Yeah.
Now let's look at the trust of the accusations against Meta. You have unauthorized appropriation of personal data. I would like you to explain in details, how does this work out? Authorization of personal data, and at what point will a company, a tech company, make use of personal data of customers? What could warrant that, and what are the standards as regards the use of this kind of personal data?
Appropriation means that they are using your data for things that you have not consented to. You have not given them the right to use your information. If you look at the way social media and all these big companies work, they have everything about you. You have your first name, your last name, sometimes your address, your picture. So sometimes, if you're on the internet, you might be talking about something right now, and as you're on your phone, and then you go to another website, maybe you're discussing, you're chatting with somebody on WhatsApp, and you're telling the person, I want to buy a new camera, and then you go to Instagram, and all of a sudden you start to see adverts on camera. How did they know that at that particular point? Obviously, it means that they're using, information that is supposed to be private between you and someone, and they're using it, and that's what we can see. How about information that you're talking about with people that shouldn't make it there? So that means that they are sort of having this access to this data and appropriating it, giving access to other, maybe third party, agencies or third party people to use that data to profile, so that's how come they can profile us. That's how come they can profile, and then they can sort of give services that even you'd have not asked for. So those are the kind of things that they're doing with this data that we're thinking, no, because you have access to that data doesn't necessarily mean that you should give it out, or you should. In most cases they tend to sell it because there are people who are on the internet who buy the. I mean, remember I think the last time I was on the show, we're talking about people having access to NINs and all that. Those are the kind of things that we should be preventing. And if you have to use somebody's data, let the person consent. If you notice that most times when you go to a lot of websites now, you see this button that says, "Oh, there's going to be cookie here. Do you accept?" If you accept and you are okay with, what they want to do, let it be clearly spelled out. And the law says that they're not saying you shouldn't use it, but you should let the person know that this is what I am going to use your data for. And if you don't consent, then I have a right to sue you if I now see I'm talking about camera to somebody and then I go on any of your other. You see, they are big and they have all these
The market share.
the market share. That's why the services are free. We don't pay a kobo to use Facebook. We don't pay a kobo to use Instagram. We don't pay a kobo to use WhatsApp. So the way they make money is the huge data that they have. They tend to use, and this is actually not the first time in Europe. They can't. I mean, they've been fined several times in Europe because of the GDPR, compliance. And now I think for the first time, I think it's even a good thing that Nigeria is setting that, precedent to say, look, it's not going to be business. Yes, even to me, the 220 million is almost like, I mean, they can pay it. I'm sure one staff in Meta can pay, but at least they know that they need to now start to reassess, their data protection, security measures around these parts.
All right, let me have a go at it. You had mentioned the fact that it feels like a slap on the wrist. But just to veer away from the money aspect just a little bit, you had talked about accepting cookies, which is like a normal terminology. You're trying to install an app, you're going on the website. Well, you realize that some persons are ignorant. There's a strong role of ignorance. You're downloading an app and it's asking for access to your camera, asking for access to your microphone, asking for access to a whole lot different permissions, and you just do accept all. For me personally, I try to play it safe and I go permission while using the app. So some of those, the cameras, the microphone only come on when I have activated the app. So yes, it feels like your mobile devices are listening in on you. But then there's also the place where a lot of people don't read through. You see the end user agreements, the agreements that are supposed to be binding on you and whatever social media app of the website. You just click on it. Yes, just because you want to go. Because yes, it's very long. There's just a whole lot that you might not cover, at the time you want to read. So how do Nigerians, regain the trust? Because yes, the awareness is coming up. A lot of people now know that there's certain information. It's possible that your phone is listening on you. And so there's certain things you probably would have said that's recorded somewhere, that's captured. There's somewhere. So how do you trust? You might be having your bath and you take your phone to your bathroom. Some people say, no, don't take your phone to the bathroom anymore, because it's possible that someone can access your your nudes, from the fact that you have your phone, in the bathroom. I've seen a video where someone does a reverse search and is able to access scammers from their camcorder, get to track them and stuff like that. So how do Nigerians now trust that tech companies, Meta, the focus here is Meta, will not trade your data for the with the highest bidder?
Thank you for that. There's almost no way for Nigerians to know whether they will trade your data or not. But coming to the first question about downloading apps and having access to
Yeah.
your camera and all that. That's why, as a consumer, as the end user, you have to know the kind of apps that you are also downloading or that you are also using on your devices. You cannot just go willy-nilly into the app store. You have to know that whatever the app is, you have to know the function of the app. So if I'm downloading a financial app from my financial institution, and it's prompting me to say he wants to use my camera and microphone, that should immediately ring a bell. That why should a financial application or a financial mobile app be asking to, it may be that I'm downloading the fake one, so you have to review it. So, or even as end users, we also have to take it upon ourselves to know that, look, a lot of these companies are, I mean, if you talk to lawyers, I'm not a lawyer, they will tell you that what they give you is contract law. It's like, it is not consumer protection law. It is not a law that will protect you.
Yeah.
It is just, that's why sometimes you don't even have a choice than to accept. The end user license agreement, you're saying, if you want to install an app, it will give you, oh, you are installing the app. It says, look, this is the end user license agreement. If you say yes, it continues. If you say no, you won't even be able to install the app. So it's not like you have a choice anyway if you need the app. So that's what they have put in. But it is not left to us as end users, as consumers, to go through this thing and be sure that the app I am using is in line with the requirements that, and one of the things that the companies are doing as even app developers, sometimes when you're uploading apps to the app store, they ask you the reason why you want some access to somebody's camera or something. So if I'm a lot of, and to be honest, a lot of the social media apps, they need access to your camera.
Yeah.
If you're doing video, you need
Yeah.
access to camera. If
Pictures.
you're pictures, if you're speaking, they need access to them. But the thing is over, even access to it when you are not using the app, that is now when so they should let us know that, okay, if I'm sitting down here now and I'm not using the app, even though the app is on, I should know that my camera is running. I should know that the speaker is running. So those are the things that I think the Consumer Protection Council is saying that, look, these are the things you have to protect people. I cannot just give you data, even if I'm trusting it with you, and then I go online and then I see it across, and then they have to segregate. It's almost as segmented. So the fact that Meta is the owner of WhatsApp, Instagram, and Facebook doesn't mean that the data I put on WhatsApp I should see it
on
on Facebook, or the data I put on Facebook. It is strictly meant for that. Maybe I use my Facebook for strictly business. I don't want it to slip through Instagram, and then I go and see it on Instagram. So those are the kind of things that they are saying. So they also have to reassess this data, and we have laws. We have the NDPR now that is saying, look, we have to take data privacy. Data protection is one thing. Data privacy is another thing. There are two different things. So that's what I think the fine is supposed to be for.
All right, let's look at some other aspects of the reasons for the fine. One of them too is discriminatory practices. Now there are speculations that the algorithms of Meta doesn't quite favor Nigerians, and also there's a content moderation. What's your take on that?
Well, yes. I mean, recently I was reading that they banned about 60-something thousand accounts on Instagram. Yeah, sometimes they tend to, the algorithm really doesn't favor us here. And another thing I see is that sometimes some of the people that, the reason why they say they clamp down on some of these accounts may not even be due to us, because Nigeria has this image of, oh, everything we do is fraud related. So some people, even in other parts of the world, so somebody can be in another country, maybe Ghana, then be using a name that looks like a Nigerian name, and it will tarnish the image. So that's some of the things. So yes, they have some discriminatory practices that they tend to give allowances for errors in other parts. But here, as soon as something happens, and anybody can go online now and say, oh, I want you to block this account, and they will do it even without due investigation, which doesn't really happen in other places. So that's what the Consumer Protection Council is saying, that look, even if you have to do this thing, at least take some measures, take some steps to investigate. Don't just clamp down. Don't just say, oh, because it is coming from this part, your first initial approach should be to shut down. So they need to review all those discriminatory practices. Even you can even see it in all their, AI, all these things that they're doing, that that's what, even in all these things, they call it bias. When you have a bias tool, so if you go to Meta now and your AI and you tell you to generate a picture, it's most likely going to generate a picture of a white man, because of those, the data that they have, the algorithm. So unless you prime it and say, look, this is the data I want exactly. So they need to relax their rules and do, which is what the FCC PC is also saying, that look, you have to stop all these, discriminatory practices, all these algorithmic things that you are tuning, and we are not getting the best. It's almost as if they've relaxed they're not giving us the best thing. In fact, one of the things that they also said was, it's difficult for us to control our own data. So, for instance, now if you want to delete your Facebook now, you find out that it's difficult for you to completely delete
All
yourself.
traces and
All
everything.
traces, you will be, and I'm like, it's my data. I should be able to go to a button and just say delete and everything. Not that you will retain it, because if you notice, sometimes when you delete it and then you want to open it again, you find out that the data is still there.
They give you a caveat. They tell you that yes, this, even if it's a post, that in as much as this might go off your wall, it might still appear on some timeline. So it's out there, it's out there. It just feels like there are traces on the sand. And that's where the problem is for me, because I believe that, like what you said, you take a button, everything goes to the trash bin. But necessarily with computers, even your normal PC, you realize that you delete it goes to the recycle bin and settles there. You clear from the recycle bin, someone else gets to that hard disk. The person can do it. There are apps called recovery apps
Can even
that you
reactivate it.
can call it back whenever. They might come in fragments, but whoever is good can piece it together. And so I feel there's a problem with data. And so it boils down to what you put out there. If you don't want it out there, don't put it out there.
Yes, you're right that people can, the data, digital data isn't exactly like physical data that you can see and then it disappears. But what they're not saying is, if I have deleted it and it is somewhere, like you said now, you go to recycle
Someone
bin,
else's
it will
time.
take effort for someone to recover it. You
Yeah.
will take somebody who knows for digital forensics and all that to be able to recover data. Not that the data that you have deleted, all of a sudden somebody can just easily do copy and paste and you see it again. So that's what we're saying now, that if I have deleted the data, let it go off. If it is, I shouldn't be able to see trace, even if you say you keep it. Yes, there's data retention. There's a period of data retention that in case you may want to change your mind
60
and
days
come
for
back
Google
60 days.
Photos and
Yes, they have it in their standard operating procedures and all these their policies. So if that's the case, then I shouldn't come 6 days later and then be seeing traces of things that I have post pictures that I'm supposed to have deleted and somebody is still having access to it. And if that's the case, spell it out. Let it be clear that this and this and this and this and these are things that are going to happen. So that's what they're saying, that it's not that data cannot be recovered, but don't make use of my data in my absence. You don't sell data that I have deleted, and then I'm seeing it in another, a totally irrelevant websites, because I know that that's the. In fact, what we always tell people is, look, if you want to know the source of data leakage, it's just that it's a difficult thing to do. A lot of us use the same emails on all the social media apps. If you know that, oh, you have maybe 10, have maybe 10 different emails to all those social media apps. That's usually, it's difficult. So that when you see a particular data leak, it's just like, for instance, now, if there's some organizations, when you go to their website, they have for each product they have a phone number that you call. So they know that if you call a particular phone number, you must only have seen it. Maybe they've used it on their billboard. So they know that if anybody wants to scan that number that we put on the billboard, it is only on the billboard that we put it. So if anybody calls and is trying to scam us, you will know that that person has seen that number. The source of that is that. So if you do the same thing for social media, so if you see a particular set of data, you will know that, oh, this data must have leaked from this particular, website. That's what. It's a lot, but honestly, the fine is a good starting point. At the very least, it's going to call their attention to it that we cannot continue to do business as usual. These people are already, getting in on the act, so they will have to reassess their own, data protection and data privacy laws guiding, the African continent.
Now let's look at the dominance of the market now, which has been of concern. Part of the allegation has to do with the abuse of the dominance in the market, in the social media market. And if you see how things are playing out in the Nigerian space, it's looking like if you're not on those platforms, you are not a normal human being. It's forming everyday existence, whatever we do in Nigeria. Are you worried about the monopolistic tendency that may arise from this and the abuse or the unprofessionalism that may arise? And then what do you think would be the impact of having, a tech company like Meta having dominance on the market share in a place like Nigeria?
It is worrisome, like you said. I mean, it's almost like we have to, whether you are, even if you are not on the ones that are pop, most people are on WhatsApp. It's for communication. It's easy, so there really isn't an alternative. And obviously these people are going to take advantage of this thing, which is why a lot of technologies are coming in now, like decentralized technology like Web3, that now says, look, why do I have to give my data to? And the truth is, what if in a situation where what if Meta goes bankrupt tomorrow? And what's going to happen to all the data I have on WhatsApp, on this? So it is a worrying phenomenon. But really, there's nothing we can do. We can only put regulation on these entities. We can only, which is what is happening in other places like Europe. That's why we have even the Nigerian data protection regulation to say, if you have custody of people's data, this is what you can do with it. This is what you can't do with it. If you want to do something with it, seek consent. If you want to use my data it's almost as if, the fact that if I put a picture of myself on my Facebook page, and the next day I see it on a billboard, a company using it as advert, does that give them the right? And they say, oh, but it's public. No, it doesn't give you the right to use that picture for passing your message. What if I don't endorse that message? So that's what Meta is that's what they're finding in them for that. The fact that you have access to these users, these companies, just like the last time we were here, we're talking about NIN. The fact that a partner has access to NIN and I have used it for a service does not mean you should go behind my back and use that same. It's equivalent to say, because your bank knows your bank account details, then they now start to use your. So those are the kind of things that we need to institute, and it's a big problem. And the regulation, and that's why in Europe they can't, a lot of these things. In fact, if you see what they do every time they bring out new products, they sort of tend to take out Europe, because Europe has the GDPR, and this is what Africa is trying to do. And I think Nigeria is leading the way, so other African countries too can say, okay, well, if that is happening in Nigeria, then I think we better start to look at our data protection, and privacy laws as well, not just, protecting the data, even the privacy, because I might want to put some things up there. That's why you have settings. There are some settings, even on those apps, that if I want
Friends,
to,
public, only you.
like your WhatsApp now, if I don't want anybody that is not on my contact list to WhatsApp, I should be able to, have that access. Not that you grant access to some people over there, and then when it comes here, anybody can have access to, to my WhatsApp number. So that's what, I think the fine is all about.
All right, you said the fine seemed like a slap on the wrist. However, it's still some money that would be leaving the company, except they appeal the fine placed by the FCCPC. Now, do you foresee a situation where there's a transfer of that fine paid to customers who would patronize them for digital advertising?
Well, it could be. I mean, this kind of thing. If it was in Europe, I'm sure they probably have been fined. Maybe, like, if you find somebody $5 billion, and then you are making a statement. So 120 million is, if you look at it and the company, it's almost as if it's a slap on the wrist. They will still appeal, but I don't think they will really. Here, they don't. A lot of their services are free, anyways. So it's not like they're going to. Maybe they will charge advertisers a lot more to pass the cost. But obviously, they're also going to, even though the fine is small, they also would probably appeal it. They're going to appeal the this thing, and then. But what would happen if they end up paying the fine, is going to set they now know at least that you cannot continue, that here. So I'm not sure they will transfer it to to advertisers or what have you. And if they do, it's not. I don't think it's anything that much of a big deal.
I think the challenge, why that figure seems so big, is perhaps the exchange rate. If we convert that to naira, but that's on the other side.
In our own, yes, like you said, in our own currency, it's
Yeah.
a big, but for them, it's
But
nothing.
let's look at the regulatory landscape in Nigeria, which is quite crucial. I understand that why they are trying to do this is to send a strong signal. But you observe that the laws in Nigeria guiding consumer rights and data protection, were just established 2019, then the other one out of data protection in 2018. Now this thing started in 2021. They started investigating them. Now we are talking about 3 years ago, the establishment of these laws, and now the regulatory agencies are talking tough now. How will you assess the regulatory landscape in Nigeria? How proactive has that been? If this thing has gone for like 3 years, they've been doing this for like 3 years. How do you think this will have, gone better if this was unraveled maybe 3 years ago when they started, or the allegation started, and this was done 3 years ago? What does that suggest to you about the regulatory framework in Nigeria and the loopholes that they need to plug on to improve that regulatory framework in Nigeria?
Good question. Yes, like you said, they just started it, less than 10 years ago. So there are obviously going to be loopholes. There are going to be learning points, and some of these things are, as you continue to tune the even the act itself, the laws and the policies governing it. And the reason why this took 3 years is obviously when you're doing investigation like that, you just don't want to point accusing fingers to say, oh, you're not protecting our data, or we don't have the data privacy laws here. So they needed to be sure, they needed to have it cast in stone to say these are the issues. Even the allegation of they are giving us substandard service here, you need to prove that kind of thing in the court of law to say this is it, and then you have hard facts, hard evidence, and these things take time. You need to monitor maybe a set of accounts or a set of sample accounts, maybe 1 million accounts, and then you need to prove to them that, oh, while this, and then also you need comparative data. So if you want to prove that we are getting the services they are giving us here isn't comparable to what you need to find services that they are providing over there compared to what we're getting here. So, and these things take time because you want to, you want hard evidence, you want hard facts, and that's why it took this long. And over time, yes, the regulatory landscape is still new, but I know for a fact that they are putting everything in place. Gone are the days when this kind of thing would have happened. It won't even make headlines. You won't even know because we won't even be aware that this kind of issues. I mean, I remember there was a time when when foreign people come to Nigeria and all of a sudden they will complain that if I'm in my country I can use my phone 24 hours, the battery will not die. But as soon as I touch down here, all of a sudden in 2 seconds, battery is going out. What is drag? That means that there's something dragging my data. Maybe the ISP, maybe maybe they're so right now those kinds of things cannot happen. We have those laws, so it's only going to get better. Yes, it is not foolproof, it is not 100% yet, but the NDP, the people responsible for these governing laws are actually making effort, and this is a step in the right direction. That means that apart from Meta, even Google, Microsoft, and all these companies too are also watching and saying that, okay, we cannot just be exposing people's data and be selling it willy-nilly. There are laws now, and if we violate some of these principles and some of these laws, we will also pay a fine, and that's it.
Many thanks, Seyi Akindeinde, for being with us on Early Exchange today and providing insights on the issue.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Pleasure.
So I'm sure that the viewers have also learned how not to just accept anything you see on the internet, not to grant permission to every site, certain permissions that you should not grant applications.
Users they are the weakest points, and they also have to read in between the lines. Don't download apps from companies you do not know.
All right. Seyi Akindeinde is the founder, Hyperspace Neutral AI, and is also a data analyst. Has been a guest on this first half of the show as we looked into the fine imposed on Meta, the parent company of Facebook, Instagram, and WhatsApp, on the reasons of data privacy violation and discriminatory practices, as well as some form of unfair market dominance. So let's see how the drama will unfold. It is now up to the FCCPC, and Meta. Let's see what happens at the end of the day. But you know what to do on your own end.
Early exchange, shaping policy, advancing development.